Both Stellantis and General Motors have announced layoffs this month. Here with some advice for anyone who finds themselves in that situation is financial advisor Michael Nemes. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So this is a scary thought. We're hearing that these layoffs could begin as soon as October 8th, so a little bit of time. If you are one of those employees and you're thinking you might be affected by this, what would you be doing right now?
So first, I wouldn't be panicking, but I would be taking a look and seeing what do I need to do from here to prepare myself for if that does happen. So the first thing we like to do is take a look at, say, how much is my emergency fund. So in cash, we generally recommend clients keep about 3 to 6 months of cash. If you have a dual income household, that might be closer to 6 months. If single income, closer to the opposite on that, so closer to 3 months. What we'd recommend clients, if you think you're going to be in that situation, I would definitely sit down with your financial advisor and say, what should I be doing next in that scenario?
Yeah, and what are those options when you do sit down with an advisor? Is it helping you to understand what kind of job you should be looking for, or is it more just managing your financial situation to stretch it out as far as it can go?
Good question. So what I recommend to my clients is that we take a look at it and say, what do we need to do in the short term, and to make sure that we're preparing ourselves for the long term. So when that does happen, you take a look at it and say, I need to make sure that I'm still saving for my retirement, still putting money away to the extent that I can. But let's say that you're putting away 10% or 15% into your retirement. We might want to shift maybe 5 or 10% of that from the retirement funds into your short-term savings funds just to prepare yourself for that.
Yeah. Is your advice different for someone who's sort of mid or early career compared to someone who's in the late stage of their career?
Absolutely. So someone who's early or mid in their career, I have 4 kids. I understand the constraints that comes along with that, and especially in a time when we have high inflation and childcare costs are up 30% over when the pandemic started. So thinking about that you want to make sure that you're able to take care of your family, take care of the day-to-day expenses that are necessary. So going through your budget and saying, looking at my credit card statement and saying, what of my expenses are absolutely necessary? What of my expenses are, if it's a coffee or a lunch or here and there, can I get rid of, or maybe trim a little bit? And if you're towards the end of your career, you might want to look at it and say, all right, is this an opportunity? Is this something I can look at and say, should I be pivoting and doing something else where it might be a catalyst to pursuing a different type of career? Or if you're over a certain age, your retirement plan might allow you to roll over the funds to a different retirement account and then start utilizing some of those. So it's really important to take a look at your funds and say, depending on, as you said, where you are in your career, are you early, are you late, will more dictate of what you're able to do with those.
Yeah, the company is saying the final number of layoffs may be a little bit lower than that maximum that they suggested because of early retirement offers and things like that. What do you think about those? Is there a general rule, or does it really, really depend on whether it's a good offer and something to consider?
Good question. So it absolutely depends on the situation. If it's something where you're already thinking about maybe making a move, then it might be a perfect scenario, right? You can get several months of severance potentially, while also being able to pivot into a new role that you're otherwise looking forward to doing. It is completely a client-by-client basis in terms of if that makes sense for you, but it can be a good thing depending on what your situation is at the time.
Yeah, and then general advice for people if they're not facing this down to prepare for the eventuality for this to ever possibly happen. Is there something you can do now for if, let's say, in a few years you get that notification that layoffs might be coming?
100%, and it's a really good reminder for everyone out there, just saying, how much should I be keeping in my retirement? How much should I be putting into really which bucket we have out there, right? So looking at your savings buckets, you have your really short-term bucket, you have your long-term bucket, then you have your mid-range bucket. So which bucket am I filling and in what percentage? And making sure that I'm really, as I said, keeping that long-term focus while fixing the short-term problems that we have right now. So,
all right, good advice. Hopefully those numbers do come in lower than that maximum number they did share. Michael Nemes, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.